Order of operations. Example 1. A hydraulic tank is measured using the inside dimensions. The diameter is 8 inches. The height is 20 inches. Find the volume of the tank using the expression below. But first, let's go over order of operations. So, order of operations, in order for us to help kind of like remember, we can think of this saying, which is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So really, what does that mean in our math terms? So the P actually stands for parentheses. And then the E stands for exponents. M and D stand for multiply, divide, and A and S stand for add, subtract. So this is a way to help us remember the order of steps that we do when solving expressions like we saw in the first example. So let's go back. So when we can do problems like this, I'm just going to rewrite and I might just go like this just to kind of help me. Now, the first thing we need to deal with is parentheses. We see we actually have two parentheses. So what we need to do is first solve for what's inside the parentheses. So the first one, let's go ahead and address this one first. So we're going to leave everything else as is, but all we need to do is just go 8 divided by 2, which that is equal to 4. We keep the exponent times 3.14 and that parentheses, and then times 20. So we are still on this first step, parentheses. And so we've done everything inside this parentheses, except what we could do is we can deal with this exponents because it's attached to this parentheses. So 4 squared is really just 4 times 4, which is equal to 16. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 16 times 3.14, then times 20. So we have dealt with the parentheses of this first one. Now we need to deal with this larger one here. So all we need to do is, as it's the only operation, is we would need to multiply. Because anything in parentheses is you also follow this order of operations as well. So if there was multiple steps inside this parentheses, we follow these steps. So now we need to go ahead and multiply. 16 times 3.14. We put the larger number on top, as in the number of digits. So 3.14 has 3, the other one has 16. So now we can go 4 times 6, which is 24. So put a 4 below, carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Then 6 times 3 is 18. Then we put a placeholder of 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. Then we add 4 plus 0, 4. 8 plus 4 is 12. Carry the 1, because we put the 2 below. 1 plus 8 plus 1 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 3 is 5. Then we have 2 decimals to place values. We move it over 2. So this answer inside this parentheses is just 50.24. And then we've dealt with inside the parentheses. So we're done there. And then we don't have any more exponents, so we're done there. Then the next step is to multiply. So we can see that we need to multiply this number with this number. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can put 50.24 times 20. Now, anything multiplied by 0 is just zeros, so it doesn't matter. Then we can move on to the 2. We need to put a placeholder of 0. Then we got 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 5 is 10. Then we need to add. So we only need to really just rewrite this second line here, as the top line is just zeros. Now we have 2 decimals to move over, so we go 1, 2. And so our answer here is equal to 1004.80. And this is for the volume, and then this is inches cubed. Now let's do another example. Example 2, solve for the following. So once again, we're just going to rewrite this. So we have 7 minus 5 raised to the third power plus 15 divided by 3. So the first thing we need to deal with is our parentheses step. So we look here, and we see we have 2 different operations. We have a subtraction and exponents. So we go back to this list, and we notice there's no more parentheses. We don't need to deal with that. So the first thing we need to do is exponents. So this 5 raised to the third power. So 5 raised to the third power is really just 5 times 5 times 5, which is equal to 125, as we did that in an earlier video. Because 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 5 is 125. So let's go ahead and rewrite this. Now we've dealt with the exponents. The next thing would be we don't have to do any multiplication or division. So the next thing would just be to subtract. And so when you can subtract, you can go ahead and take the larger number and say you subtract the 7. So 5 minus 7 can't be done. You need to borrow. So you have 15 minus 7, which is 8. Then we have 1 and 1. But we need to keep the sign of the larger number, which is 125, so it's negative. So it's negative 118. So now we have dealt with our parentheses step, because we don't have any more operations. Next is exponents, but we don't have any exponents in this problem, so we can move on. The next thing to do is multiply or divide. And we could see we have a division problem right here. So we can go 118 plus 15 divided by 3 is 5. So now we've dealt with that step, and all we need to do is to add these two numbers together. Once again, we can just go 118 minus 5. 8 minus 5 is 3, and then 1, 1. And so this is negative 113 as we keep the sign of the larger number. Now let's do another example. Example 3, solve for the following. So once again, we can write this out to make sure we follow the steps. So we need to deal with the parentheses. And we see we have 2 parentheses and a larger parentheses. So what we need to do is first tackle each parentheses first. So let's deal with this one first. It's just 3 times 6. There's only one operation, so let's go ahead and do that. 3 times 6 is 18. Then on this one, we'll just leave it like this. We'll rewrite it as there's multiple steps. Now, for this, we would need to first look at this and see which ones we need to do first. And going back to our list, we don't have any exponents, but we do have a division problem. So we would need to first go 14 divided by 2. So let's go do that. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. And then we have minus 5. And then we have that divide by 4. Now we need to deal with this parentheses, continue on, and we need to just subtract this 7 minus 5, which is 2. So we can go ahead and rewrite this. Now we've dealt with everything inside this parentheses as it's simplified. You can't do any more operations, and so we need to deal with this larger parentheses now. So all we have is 18 plus 2. There's no more operations, so we can just go ahead and solve for that. So 18 plus 2 is 20. Then we need to divide by 4. So this is our last step. As we've dealt with our parentheses here, we don't have exponents, and then the next step would be to multiply or divide. So 20 divided by 4 is equal to 5. And that would be our solution.